Started. All right, welcome everybody to the morning team call. If you're just joining us, our speaker for today is none other than Mr. Christion Sadler. And if you are new to the call, you haven't met Christion, you don't know who Christion is. Christion is actually a leader in the Salt Lake City community. And before getting started with Renatus, Christion was actually quite a troublesome young man, very mischievous. He got kicked out of school a lot. He even went to an alternative school for some time. And, as he kind of got older, he started working some low-wage jobs in steel fabrication and started finding it hard to make ends meet and knew that that was not the life that he wanted to live. So he started looking into other opportunities and thought, why not real estate? Why don't I get my hand to real estate? Started going to different guru events, but really felt like he was spinning his wheels until he found Renatus. When he did find Renatus, he plugged into the education. He started listening to his mentors. He started showing up early, staying late, helping out wherever he could. And, we fast forward to today. Christion has done multiple, six-figure transactions in his business. He is a marketing leader. He's a PIT team member, and he's just had some incredible successes. So without further delay, I'd like to bring Christion Sadler on the line. So good morning, Christion. How's your day going today? How's your morning going?
Really good, Abby. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for starting off this call and kicking things off right, talking about some of those highlighted events. Love watching the videos, and definitely highly encourage that if you guys are jumping on these calls, make sure you're jumping on right at 8 o'clock, right at the top of the hour, because those first couple of videos are always inspiring, and it kind of gets your head in the right spot before we jump into the training, or as we jump into this training. I really look at it as an addition to these calls. And Avi, you do a phenomenal job with just having some great music going on and some positive quotes and getting things started on the right track as far as our morning is concerned. So I'm just grateful for everything that you do for this team. And I just want to say thank you and can't wait to see you tonight. So for everybody else, welcome to the call. Congratulations for being here, and really taking your business serious, and continuing to pursue further success. And I want to do something just a little bit different today, let's call it. I want to focus specifically on three-way phone calls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean by three-way phone calls, how we can utilize them. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some of you that are on the line to come out and share your story so that you guys can actually work with each other. You guys can actually help each other. You guys can connect offline and continue to build a relationship that allows you to have expert witnesses, let's call it. That's the kind of the whole goal, is having these expert witnesses. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're on the line and you're in a position where you can talk, so you're able to come off mute and share your story, then just put a chat in the chat line so I can call you out one-on-one, just to make this a little bit more organized, rather than everybody trying to come out and speaking over each other, which often happens. To make it a little bit less chaotic, as I start this first portion of the training, if you are in a position where you can unmute yourself and share, and you're willing to share your story and want to connect with other people in order to help your business succeed, please just chat into the chat line right now and say, I'm available. It can be as simple as that, just 2 words, I'm available. And then I'll go down one by one, and I'll have you guys share your story. And of course, I'll start off by sharing mine, just so that you guys kind of get the format, so that we can move through this process. So here's the goal. And I might as well do a screen share with this. So just got to move these controls around, make sure they're out of the way. And today we're specifically talking about three-way phone calls. And essentially what you're doing is you're going to pull in an expert witness. Now, here's the thing about an expert witness. That doesn't mean that it has to be one of the top leaders in Renatus. That doesn't mean that it has to be somebody that is already done, 100 real estate deals or anything like that. It's really just somebody who has benefited from being a part of this community and from the education. So you want to have an expert witness. The second thing is you want to connect the pieces. I think I spelled that wrong. Don't worry about it. We'll fix that. Oops. You want to connect the pieces. And then the third thing is you, as you make the introduction, then you want to simply turn that time over. So in other words, you want to edify them. Now, part of the ways that you, well, let's get back to the expert witness thing. Let's go in order. So with your expert witness, this is simply somebody that has benefited from the Renatus education, the Renatus community. This is somebody that is passionate about what we're doing. And the best way to do it is if you can connect the pieces with somebody who has a similar story. So that's part of the reason that we're going to share some stories on the call today, because it's really cool when you're talking with somebody and they've already been to, a presentation. You're sitting down at the follow-up with them. You're going through the information. I mean, I think there was something said that, in the words of two or three witnesses, something of that sort. What it really comes down to is you want to get other people that can collaborate with your story, right, of the success and the excitement of what we have here. And if you can connect the pieces with somebody who is similar to them, that is usually very helpful. So, for example, if you're talking with somebody that maybe had a little bit of a troubled past, maybe they, if they had a troubled past, you might be able to connect them with somebody like me. If you had somebody that was a construction worker, specifically like a steel worker, right, you could connect them with somebody like me. If you had somebody who, was in real estate and, went through the ups and the downs of, the market, and especially through 2008 and the years following, then that's somebody that you could introduce to me. And then on the other hand, if you're, switching topics and if you have somebody that, was a car guy, you can introduce them to Michael. If you, had somebody that, was over leveraged with student loans and didn't even realize what they were getting into, that's somebody that you can introduce to Michael. And, you guys get the point. The list goes on and on. If it's a school teacher, you could take him and introduce them to Janine. And if it's somebody that came from the stock market, you can introduce them to Raul. And if it was somebody that was, that had to walk away from their dream in order to take care of their family, you could introduce them to John O'Neill. If you know his story well, then you'll understand what I mean there. And so that's kind of the key is you want to have an expert witness. And with that expert witness, the goal is to connect the pieces. Now, does that mean that you can only use somebody who is, like the person that has the same story as the person that you're talking to? Absolutely not. Okay. So when you're connecting those pieces, it does not necessarily have to be somebody that is, has a similar story. But what you want to do is you do want to find how they connect, find how they relate, right? So in something that they're sharing, in something that they are concerned with, right? So oftentimes, this is one example for you. If I have somebody where I'm talking with the husband and the wife, and the wife is kind of more skeptical overall, and the husband is trying to decide what to do, and his wife is supportive but skeptical, then I'll say, you know what, this actually reminds me a lot of Steve and Tammy Nordforce, and let me see if I can get you on the line with them, because Tammy was that way. She was kind of in that position where she was really skeptical overall, and this was a big deal of spending $20,000 to do this real estate thing. And now Tammy is one of Steve's biggest supporters. In fact, they are partners in real estate, and she's been able to go out there, and not only do they make six figures in investing, but now she's approaching that with her real estate business as a realtor, because as they got into real estate, they started realizing there was this untapped potential, and now they both hold their license, and they do some really incredible things. So they diversified their income. But when they were first looking at this, Tammy was kind of that skeptical one that was really not sure about taking this leap, and now she's probably the biggest advocate for who we are and what we do. So it's just one example of connecting the pieces, right? There's all kinds of different ways that you can connect those pieces. So you want to find the similarities with the person that you're talking to and the person you're going to introduce them to. And the next thing is you're going to edify that expert rather than kind of going the other way around. And so let me kind of share with you what I mean by that. If you're coming up and you're introducing somebody to a leader, and you come over, and let's say that you're introducing them to Mitch Nelson, for example, just so that we have a clear name and who's who, right? There's Joe Schmo, and there's Mitch Nelson. So you get on the phone, and you're going to coordinate with this with the person that you're bringing on a three-way prior to making the call. And the easiest way to do that is just send out a text message. So what I've often done in this situation where I know that I am going to want to do some three-way phone calls during a follow-up, that's typically when I'm doing these three-way phone calls, it's either during a follow-up or within that follow-up process, meaning you've already done the follow-up, they've made the decision, and they're moving forward on finding the funding. In order to keep them excited and in order to keep them engaged, I'll get on the phone with them, and we'll talk to them about, what they have going on. And I'll say, you know what? I was just thinking about, Bill Predabon and how much you actually have in common with Bill, just from the standpoint that, Bill also was a business owner, and real estate is what kind of took him out of that self-employed type business into the position where he makes incredible money in real estate. And I just wanted to introduce you to him. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can get him on the line, right? And so I'll call Bill. But what I'll do is I'll send out a few text messages before the follow-up. And I'll just say, hey, are you available for a three-way phone call in the next 30 minutes or so, or however long I believe that's going to be, right? Are you available for a three-way phone call in the next 45 minutes to an hour? And that gives them a window to where they can be watching for your call, right? I know when people do this for me, it's super helpful. It's gives me the ability to kind of prepare for it and watch for it. And so I'm going to do that. Now, when I'm edifying that expert, if I come and I say, hey, Mitch Nelson, this is Joe Schmo. And Joe Schmo went to college here, and Joe Schmo did this, and Joe Schmo did that, and Joe Schmo is going to be a great asset to the team. Joe, this is Mitch. Who just got edified? Yeah, Joe Schmo got edified. You spent all your time talking about Joe Schmo. And what you also did was you took away a lot of the talking points of what Mitch could talk to Joe about, right? So here's the opposite way of doing it. Here's the way that I would suggest doing it. Instead, when you do that phone call, and you've already prepared them, you've sent out text messages. Mitch said, yeah, I'm available And I'm just using names of people that I talk to, more often, that are in the business. And so, you prepared Mitch, and you're sitting there with this person, you're having a conversation, and maybe they're like a Star Wars fan or something. And you're like, or a Star Trek, let's say Star Trek fan. You're like, you know what? I've actually got a friend of mine who was big into Star Trek. And, you guys would probably connect. He knows like all the names of the ships and everything, but is an absolute leader in this business and has done some amazing things. His name is Mitch. Let me see if I can get him on the line real quick. Now, notice I'm not asking them, hey, would you like to meet this guy, Mitch? He's pretty cool. No, I'm saying, you know what? This actually reminds me of, a friend of mine. And, here's why you guys connect, right? Here's why there's some similarities there. Let me see if I can get him on the line. And I'll just start dialing right there. And then when I dial, here's the thing that I do. I'll say, hey, Mitch, this is Christion. I'm actually sitting here with Joe Schmo, and I wanted to introduce him to you. So Joe, Mitch is a guy that he was selling websites for a living. Like I said, you guys kind of have the similarities in liking Star Trek and some of those things. But, Mitch was he wanted a better path. He realized that he was nowhere near on track to hit his goals of making $1 million income. And so what he did was he started seeking out something better, and he figured out real estate was the path. And he actually, got started with us here. And within, just a few years, Mitch got to the point where he was doing upwards of 5 fix and flips at a time. He's made incredible income on the marketing side of the business. And I just wanted you to get a chance to know him. So Joe, this is Mitch. Now, when I say, Joe, this is Mitch, what does Mitch get to do at that point? He gets to step in and say, hey, Joe, how's it going? Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you connect with Christion, right? And that's really the goal, is to give them the ability to just start asking questions of your prospect. Because as you guys get really good at this, and as you bring on, great people as your expert witness, what they're going to do is they're going to ask questions of your prospect. They're going to make them feel valued. They're going to share a little bit of their story, right? And then if there's the opportunity, and again, this is an if, your expert witness, their goal is not to close your guest for you. However, if there's an opportunity, they're going to ask for the order for you. And what I mean by that is they're going to say something to the effect of, man, it was great to meet you. Are you going to be joining the team? Or are you going to be getting started with us? Or, something of that sort. Hey, am I going to see you in study group next week? Right? Am I going to see you at the live tapings? Hey, we've got live tapings this coming week. Are you going to be there? Something of that sort that gives just the ability to do a little soft close for you. Now, if the person isn't super responsive and they're not all about it, then what they are more likely to do in that scenario is just say, hey, it was nice to meet you. This has been life-changing for me. If there's anything that I can ever do for you, Christion has my phone number, and leave it at that, right? And so you're really, the way that you edify that expert is you share all about them, and introduce your prospect, your prospective student, your soon-to-be student, to that expert witness, and let that person do some digging and figure out who this person is and give some talking points. Because what you'll find in conversation is if you're doing all the time talking, the other person doesn't feel like they had that great of a conversation. They feel like all you did was talk about you. On the other hand, if you ask questions and they're doing all the talking, and it seems like all the conversation is about them, guess what? That's almost everybody's favorite topic, right? It's the topic that they know most about, that they understand the most, they're most passionate about, they're most concerned with, right? It's their own survival. It's themselves. And so what that expert witness is going to do is they're not going to sit there and talk about me, 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 me. They're going to say, tell me about you. And that person is going to feel valued. So here's the other thing. One of the ways that you edify your expert is you don't interrupt. You don't have to lead this phone call. You don't have to be the one that tries to steer it in this direction or that direction, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, kind of ask strategic questions or bring up strategic points. Absolutely do that. But once you've said, hey, Joe, this is Mitch, the best thing you can do is shut up. That edifies Mitch. If you're inserting yourself into that conversation while they're having discourse, then you're actually taking away the edification from your expert. And so, very simply, I like to use these three-way phone calls specifically in the follow-up, and I'll share with you a story. Expert in this industry. In fact, worked very closely with Bob's previous company, and was one of my first mentors in this business. His name was Chad Wade. And Chad was the master at three-way phone calls. I mean, he would use this constantly, right? And the guy was making upwards of, I believe it was at his peak, about $1.8 million a year, just in education referrals, right? And by the way, in that company, their compensation plan was not, their earnings plan was not nearly as good as ours. And still, he was making about $1.8 million a year. And he loved to use three-ways. He was constantly grabbing somebody and sticking them on the phone with his prospect. In fact, I remember he went out to Chicago and he spent some time with the guy out there that had upwards of 200 properties. And he had this guy pick him up from the airport. And this guy shared the story. He said, from the time I picked him up to the time I dropped him off that night, all he was doing was talking to people on the phone and introducing them to me, or we were going to follow-ups, and then he was introducing them to me. And I was watching just the constant conversation, and Chad didn't do much of the talking, because all he would do was say, hey man, I was thinking about you, and I was hanging out with Andrew here. And Andrew's been able to, pick up over 200 properties. He's already an expert real estate investor, and I just kind of wanted you to hear from him why, with all of his experience, he's joining this company. So, Joe Schmo, here's Andrew. And he would just make that simple introduction. And then he would let Andrew do the talking. Now, Andrew didn't have a choice. Andrew was already there. He was in the car. He was like, he was getting the phone handed to him, essentially. Now he didn't dislike it, by the way. He learned a ton, and he talked about how much value he gained by being with Chad. But he talked about how the entire day, that was the whole process. And Chad would do this with me as well. I mean, I'd be over at Chad's house, and we'd be hanging out, and I'd be learning from him. And he would do a follow-up down in his home office. I'd be upstairs making phone calls, and all of a sudden he would, bring that person up that he was doing a follow-up with, and he would walk up and he'd say, hey man, I just, I wanted to introduce you to this person. Hey, Joe Schmo, this is Christion, and Christion started with us when he was 22 years old, and, he's been able to do these things and this and that. So I just wanted to introduce you guys. And then I knew that was my cue. So I just started asking questions to this person. I started congratulating them for becoming part of the team, right? And just helped to move that person along through the process. See, the thing about it is we have this amazing force on our side here, which is positive peer pressure, right? Positive peer pressure. What that means is you've got people moving in a positive direction in their life, and by their example, you can help others move in a positive direction in their life. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to get some stories. I'd like to connect some of you with each other and with me, by the way. I want to be able to utilize you guys' story too. So I want you to just share your stories a little bit. And in so doing, it's going to help us all connect and connect the pieces with some people. So what I want you to do is tell where you were. And I want you to go into the pain a little bit. right? Just so that we understand that, okay? And then what attracted you? And I want you to talk about the hope. And then what you've gained. And, with that, I want you to just talk about value, right? Value. All right, so your story. So just do this right here. Oops. Come on, guys. All right. Remember, chat into the chat line if you're available to share your story. I'm just going to pull up the chats now. We're going to find out who's available. Okay, that's not it. Come over here. All right, nobody's chatted in yet. If you guys are available and open to share your story, just chat into the chat line, and then I'm going to ask you to come off mute. You're going to have to unmute yourself in order to do this, and I want you to share your story. So as we're doing that, and as we're asking for that participation, let me just kind of share with you my story, and this will give you a little bit more insight. Now, you can use this when you're talking with people, because I'll give you some key points. So some of the key points with me was where I came from, and some of that pain was, I really grew up and got in a lot of trouble as a kid. I wasn't really set, on a good path in life, and so I was headed in a wrong direction. And with that, I knew that real estate was the path for me. I just didn't really know how to do it. And I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on education trying to learn real estate investing before Renatus. Before I ever found this education, I spent tens of thousands of dollars from the age of 18 to 22. And I had just gotten so sick of that upsell, right? The upsell game of all these other companies. It was always, you needed the next bus tour, you needed the next coaching package, you needed to go to the next seminar. And all I wanted to do was, put this into action. And every time I would get to the point where I was stuck with these other companies, they just wanted to sell me something else that was supposed to get me, past that obstacle. And sometimes it didn't even relate to the questions that I had. So that was pretty frustrating. Another thing, this is kind of further into the story, but, after 2008, I had really, had taken a huge hit in real estate. And, I can relate with people that had done that. And so it was Renatus. When Renatus launched in 2011, it was from that point forward that I always had consistent real estate transactions going. I can't think of a time from the time that Renatus launched until now, still, that I've had a lull where I didn't have a real estate deal in the works of some sort. And sometimes I've had upwards of, 7 deals in the works. And so, that's some of the story as well. As 2008, that downfall, I experienced it like anybody else that was in real estate at the time. And so you can use that as part of the pain. Now, what attracted me, there's in the beginning, I always knew that real estate was the key. And what attracted me was there was actually people doing what I was wanting to do. Meaning when I came down, I was introduced to person after person after person that was actually doing real estate. And that was the biggest thing for me. I thought at that point, I just had this hope that if these people could do it, then I could do it. And I actually had people to guide me along the way. And what I gained was absolutely that. I had the opportunity to be surrounded with people who were, succeeding massively in their field and that were willing to step down to my level as, 22-year-old steelworker and guide me along the way. Some of that further story is too, when we launched Renatus, I was able to see the flaws and strategies that I had been using up until that point. And I was able to build better and more or exit strategies to be able to be more successful in real estate and prepare myself for the time that any potential downfall comes in the future. And so those are just some key points. Chuck, it looks like you're available to share your story. Come on out, Chuck. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Come out and share your story.
Hi there, everybody. Chuck here from Nebraska. Where I was is I had just left a job. I'd been working for like 7 years, and I had just had a daughter. So I was like trying to figure out something better because I've been doing this, like go to the job for like 10 years, 9 to 5, and I'd like get let go, or in this case I left, but I was like, there's got to be something better. And then eventually I started following Chris White, and the hope he gave me was that I could live my dream. And my dream was, to make $500,000 a year, because I had read the success principles and I come up with that. And then I started following Chris, and he showed me the comp plan, and that's where I like got hooked. And the hope was that I could get a couple of people in there, and I'd have my investment paid back. And the value I've gained so far is mostly just knowledge. The difference that I didn't realize, the mindset I was living in, that it was in poverty and scarcity, and that there's a whole another mindset of abundance. I think that's the biggest value, and all the education that there is.
Awesome. Yeah, Chuck, that's perfect, right? So, you were in a position where you were sick of working jobs that ultimately were leading nowhere. And, you saw an opportunity where you could make income while learning how to build long-term wealth. And seeing that earnings plan was really what attracted you. And now you've gained an incredible amount of knowledge, and you've been able to shift your mindset towards abundance. It's perfect. And so I'm not seeing anybody else chat in here. So really quick, we only have about a minute and a half left. Let's just kind of role play this if we could. So Chuck, I'm going to do a 3-way phone call with you, and I'm going to play both myself and I'm going to play Joe Schmo. Okay. So I want you guys to see how simple this is. So for you, Chuck, you're just going to use what I shared with you as far as what that expert witness is going to do. So when I introduce Joe to you, then you're going to simply ask some questions. You're going to make them feel valued. You're going to share a little bit of your story, and then you're basically going to turn the call back, and if there's an opportunity, then you can do a simple ask for the order, and if not, then simply add that value of hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you, Christian has my phone number. So I'm sitting here with Joe Schmo, and we're doing a follow-up, and they're in a position where they're just walking away from their job, and I'm like, you know what, Joe, I need you to know Chuck. Chuck is in a very similar position to you. He's just recently started with us and is doing some cool things, and for him, he was in that same position. He was walking away from a job, and he realized that after 10 years of working these jobs, that it wasn't getting him where he wanted to be. So hold on a second. Let me get him on the line. Ring, ring. Chuck, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why it's supposed to come off mute.
Got it. So ring, ring.
Hello, this is Chuck.
Hey, Chuck. Christion Sadler. How are you?
I'm doing pretty awesome. How's it going?
Doing really great. Hey, I've actually got Joe here with me, and Joe has been following me online and looking at what we're doing. He's pretty stoked about getting started in the business. He's been looking for some additional income streams, and I wanted to introduce you to him. So Joe, let me tell you a little bit about Chuck. Chuck is a guy that is he's excited about this business. He is. Where are you at, by the way, Chuck?
Nebraska.
Nebraska. He said that. Okay. He's out in Nebraska, and he's a guy that I believe is going to be, a huge force in opening up that Nebraska marketplace. And he realized that working a job just was not getting him where he wants to be. And, he really has talked about with me the abundance in his mindset and what he's been able to gain as far as shifting that mindset, being involved with us here in Renatus. So, Joe, this is Chuck.
Hi there, Joe. How's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good.
So what got you looking at this?
I was just I was looking for some additional income streams. I've been following Christion online. I see some of his videos that he's sharing, and I decided I wanted to come take a look.
That sounds awesome. He probably adds a lot of value for your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So let me help you along, Chuck. All you're going to do, ask questions to Joe. So what do you do for work right now? What is it that, that attracted you about what we're doing? Just simple questions like that. And what that'll do is that'll get Joe talking. And unfortunately, we're over time, so I'm just going to speed this up by sharing. But you guys will get this. If you guys work together, right, start connecting with each other and start doing these three-way phone calls. The conversation is, so what it is that you're doing for work right now? Are you looking at this as something that you're going to supplement that, or are you looking to go full time? And as you get that person talking about themselves, then you say, hey, you're in great hands. Oh, this is the other thing that I need to make sure that I emphasize. If you are the expert witness, make sure that you edify that person that is introducing their prospect to you. That's the whole key, is you want to edify that expert witness, and that expert witness you want to then edify you. And that's kind of the key point here. And so at the end of all of it, you're going to say, you know what, you're in good hands. I can't think of anybody better for you to be working with than Christion. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you, just do me a favor. And, Christion's got my phone number. Reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to help. And just, it's as simple as that, guys. Connect with each other. And Sherry, yes, we can. If you guys will show up and you'll be available and you guys will practice this and you'll be ready for it, then we can come next week and we can do this exercise again. I won't go through the whole training again. Instead, what we'll do is we'll just go into practicing, as an exercise. You're asking for it, happy to do it. So you guys next Thursday, be here and be available to practice this. All right, guys, get out there and make it a great day.